Ladies and gentlemen, pleasure to be back. I'm very happy you're not tired of me yet. And it's always good to be back at a friend's house, and this is how I feel every time I'm coming here, and I hope to continue the cooperation. And yes, in fact, originally I came here to tell you one story, and it's a recent story and a very public story and very wide media coverage in Poland. But life, as unpredictable as it is, brings new stories. And in Poland, there is a saying, when there are 3 polls, there are 30 opinions. There are, more than 3 polls in Poland and more than 3 judges in Poland, so the life brings more and more stories. Let me tell you the first one, as it in particular focuses on the limits of the judge's opinion in the justification to the verdict he has just given in a very big, very wide media covered case. And the other one is just a recent one, how the court of first instance says guilty, and the second instance court says absolutely not, within a couple of weeks. Story number 1, the actors on the scene, the accused, Dr. G, medical doctor, chief of the cardiosurgery department in Warsaw, one of the best cardiosurgery departments in Poland, responsible for most of the heart transplantology in Poland, famous doctor and a very interesting personality, as it turns out. That's the suspect, the accused, and the sentenced, in fact. The actor number 2 is the Central Anti-Corruption Bureau, which is a state institution established in 2006 in Poland to fight corruption in public and commercial life. And, well, it's not very easy, and I'm morally confused here to admit in the friend's house, in the neighbor's country's house, that we needed, as we can see, a state institution which would help to fight corruption in the Polish public and commercial life. That's actor number 2, agents of the Central Anti-Corruption Bureau. And number 3 is the judge, Igor Tuleya, the judge of the first instance court in Warsaw in criminal proceedings. The story is not very simple, but it's a real life story, and I'm sure those of you who come from European or Eastern European countries will not be very surprised by what you hear. Colleagues from the United States maybe, although Charles here is kind of in between, over the ocean all the time, so he gets a sense of the differences. Dr. G, in 2007, February 12, 2007, Dr. G is arrested by the Central Anti-Corruption Bureau, caught in his office, handcuffed immediately, dragged out of the office while they search the office, while they search his apartment, while they eventually search his parents' apartments. He was not living with his parents, but apparently there was a reason to search his parents' apartments. The operation was done by the Central Anti-Corruption Bureau. The cryptonym of the operation was Dr. Mengele, which itself gives you an idea of how very important and how very critical the operation was. Charges given by the Corruption Bureau were corruption, obviously bribery, murder of a patient, and then eventually mobbing at the workplace. The doctor is dragged to the parking lot. They search his apartment, they search the office, they find, to no surprise, lots of bottles of good alcohol, lots of pens in the nice fancy boxes. They also find some cigars, they also find some other souvenirs, books. They don't find envelopes at the spot, but there are recordings, as they had hidden cameras in his office for a while. 2 days later, it's a wide media coverage. The picture that we are killed with, although it's not a good word to use in this particular story, is the handicapped man. They show only the hands, there is no face, obviously, right? And those bottles in the cupboard, the bottles of good whiskey, the bottles of very good whiskey, and the bottles of even better whiskey. And the idea is, right, the corrupted doctor, the chief of the big department, is now arrested and put in prison for 3 months. It's an arrest for especially dangerous suspects. Obviously, all of the surgeries are stopped. This transplantology process is being suspended at the Warsaw department, and there are totally 41 charges officially stated, 18 of those charges are solely based on a witness's statement from a specially established phone line after the arrest. So they arrest the doctor, they open a phone line to which former patients may call and confess they bribed the doctor, and in return, no liability is taken, right? So once they confess they actually gave the bribery, so they prove the guilt of the Dr. G, they are released from the responsibility. 18 of the charges are based solely on those confessions. That's the law. And in addition, they find out that he was a terrible chief, demanding his people to be on call constantly, demanding his people to work harder than any other doctors in the hospital, demanding his people, his staff, not to take too much of a vacation, at the same time saving hundreds of lives. 200 witnesses, 120 files of the case, 4 years of the process, hidden camera recordings of the Central Anti-Corruption Bureau, and several faces of Dr. G given by the media. The face of a despot, the face of a victim, the face of a bribe taker, and the face of a lifesaver. Right? Patients gather outside the courtroom yelling, "We love you, you saved my life." Patients gathering on the other side saying, "You murderer, you killed my mother." And, well, the wide media coverage, and behind that, a political background. The governing party back then, and let's not go into politics, although it's very difficult. It should be here good morals of a lawyer, theoretical, practical, and in my case, political issues. The governing body, which actually was responsible for the establishment of the Central Anti-Corruption Bureau, is absolutely glorious. And they say, look, we arrested Mengele of our times. This is the man who is a bad man. And in fact, the famous press conference statement was, no one, by the chief of the party, no other life will ever be taken away by this man. That's before the verdict is given. That's while the process is going on. You can only imagine, right, the public response, the political turmoil that happens throughout the entire process, and the guy is definitely number one on the media for a long time. It's 4 years of the process. He doesn't work, he doesn't do the heart operations. The transplantology in Poland goes way down in statistics. People are afraid, they don't want to go to the doctors anymore, right? He is deprived of his any rights, he's in prison most of the time. Then his ex-wife comes into the picture, and it gets even more complicated. You can only imagine the additional stories. And then the verdict comes on January 4th, 2013. Judge Igor Tuleya, Court of First Instance, gives his verdict. He released Dr. G from all the mobbing cases, from all the mobbing charges. He says he was just a very demanding doctor. He was a very demanding chief, but given the fact that it's a #1 transplantology place in Poland, he had every right to have his staff on call 24 hours a day, and understands the situation. Released completely from the mobbing charges, sentences him for a year imprisonment, suspended for 2 years, based on the proved evidence acceptance of about 20 bribes, each in money. Each bribe from 180 to 2,000 Polish zloty, right? Which is about 600, 700 euros, right? And there were, of course, more charges. Then the verdict is given, and the judge goes into the oral justification, right, of his verdict, open to the press and to the public. And he shows no mercy to the actions taken by the Anti-Corruption Bureau. He says that there is obviously no evidence, no matter how many recordings were done, that Dr. G actually depended making or doing the surgery after he's paid for it. So there is no evidence that he requested money before, right, proceeding with the patient. There are recordings of the acceptance of the gifts. There are no recordings of the acceptance of the envelopes, and most of what was given to the media was a manipulated material of cut and paste of different parts of the recordings to give it a better show. Most of the witnesses' statements and testimonies over the phone line, but not only, also regular testimonies, the judge calls a joke. As for example, one woman who called the line and was used as one of the charges tried to rhyme her testimony. The other one tried to break every sentence with the F word. The third one was 82 years old, and his testimony was taken in the middle of the night after the heart surgery. One witness testified she had to take a bank loan to pay the bribe so her mother could be operated. The court immediately requested the bank recordings, and it proved that the loan was taken 6 months after the surgery was done. And the mother was fine. The accusation of murder was obviously taken down, as it turned out that the mother of the patient who actually was in the surgery room, it was her last chance. And Dr. G was known for giving patients last chance. And it's my personal input here because my mother is a cardiologist and she knows the guy. And she says he's very difficult to deal with, but he never refused any patient. And that was the testimony of all of the patients. He never refused to try to help, right? So he tried to help. There was a statement that it is the last chance, the chances for the survival are very low. The woman dies, but she's not obviously murdered by the doctor. Most of the recordings released to the media, the judge says, this is all what I'm saying right now was all in the judge's justification to the verdict. Manipulated shows the results, not the acceptance of the gifts. The judge obviously raises the question, where is the line between the gratitude of a patient saying thank you to the doctor after the surgery is successful and he can live or she can live, and the bribe of giving the gratitude beforehand, right? A very common problem, not only in Poland as far as I know. And the judge for the first time publicly says, if you want to say thank you to your doctor, bring flowers, bring chocolate, bring a bottle of wine. That's it. No gifts, no money. Right? So he establishes for the first time an official line of how to say thank you to a doctor who saved your life, not to be accused, right, of bribing the doctor before or afterwards. The murder completely abolished, and the most famous statement from the judge's justification was as follows. Methods used by the Central Anti-Corruption Bureau do not even remind me of the ones used in the 1980s, and I'm familiar with them because I tried a lot of cases based on the situation in 80s later on, but they remind me of the ones used in 1940s and 1950s, the highest times of Stalin. And he finishes the justification. You can only imagine what happened afterwards. Keep in mind, the party who was governing, the leading party back when Dr. G was, or Mengele was arrested, is now an opposition party, right? So the opposition now party says, he crossed the line, violated ethics. He should be absolutely kicked out from the judiciary system, banned for life. This is ridiculous. This is unacceptable. This should have ever happened. And they call that in Poland there is a National Judiciary Council, responsible also for the ethical rules for judges, and they submit an application, they submit a motion for the disciplinary procedure against Judge Tuleya. And they obviously digged out in his life, they digged out all the dirt they could possibly do, and it all goes to the media. And the National Judiciary Council refuses to take the action. The council says he did not cross the line, no law and no morals were violated. He had every right to give his opinion. The public is divided, obviously. Some say, well, this is what good morals of a lawyer should be. He not only gave a verdict based on a good sense of law, but also, right, a good sense of morals, that he felt obliged, and that was his also reasoning, he felt obliged to say how wrong the methods were. He didn't say the doctor was a saint, because he was not. But he said how not right and how absolutely unacceptable the methods of even calling the entire operation Dr. Mengele's operation were. For that, he was obviously given the troubles, and I'm not morally fine with giving you even examples of what they did to his house, of what happened to his family after the verdict was given. But he's, with time of obviously passing, he's seen as, from one side, a lawyer, a judge, right, who had a good sense of morals, right, and absolutely nothing to do with politics, and on the other hand, the one who was, right, by the right now opposing party, believed to be, killing the entire anti-corruption bureau system. That was one case, and Judge Tuleya, afterwards, he was so, and this is also to prove how very wrong he felt about it, he was so disgusted with the actions taken by the Bureau that he filed to the prosecution, that he tried to say to the prosecution that there were offenses committed during the collection of the evidence, but the prosecution refused to pick up the case. They never touched upon it. And the story number 2, just to give you a short one, is again, it's a love story. A member of a Polish parliament, a woman, is seduced by an agent of the Central Anti-Corruption Bureau. She's married with kids, regular person. She's seduced months and months. He works working on her, flirting and getting her involved in a personal relationship, to then tell her, elections are coming, you'll need money for your campaign. I'll give you money, I'm a businessman, but I need a good piece of land on the Hell Peninsula to build a spa. She talks to the governor of the Hell, and they arrange, the Central Anti-Corruption Bureau arrange for the controlled bribery. Right? The controlled bribery takes place. The two agents push the cases filled with money to them. The governor actually refuses. She's confused, but she's caught red-handed with the money. And then it's opened up. It goes to the public. She's obviously in trouble, and the case goes to the court. The first instance court says guilty. She was guilty, she took the bribe, she arranged for the nice piece of land, guilty, no mercy to her. Appellate court says absolutely not guilty, because the way the Central Anti-Corruption Bureau collected the evidence was simply testing citizen. She was an innocent person, and they worked on her months after months and after months to say how strong she will be and how far you can push, right, the citizen's honesty, to then see if he or she takes the bribe. It's the theory of the poisoned of the fruit of the poison tree, which is not explicitly stated in the Polish criminal proceedings, but you can actually sense it from the constitution and other rules. Well, so she's innocent by the Court of Appeal, and then the debate continues, and it's again a discussion. Was it morally? The court says, the second instance court says, morally guilty. Right? I mean, there is no mercy on her. She should not have been taking the money. She was actually caught taking the money, but legally it was absolutely illegal operation, so she is not guilty. And obviously now the cassation will go to the Supreme Court. The cassation is the third instance possibility in Poland, where you can pick up on the court's mistakes. And now they will try to get the court's mistakes while sentencing, not sentencing, proving her not guilty based on the fruit of the poison tree theory, which does not exist in the Polish law. So we have two judges who were brave enough, right, to go absolutely against the politics, right, of the situation, and they revealed and they sustained the good morals of a lawyer. And then we have a whole bunch of politicians from both sides, opposing and governing parties, doesn't matter, I keep them in one bucket, who proved to be absolutely immoral, not for the first time, right, and one story after another, within a couple of weeks, right, gave the public opinion a field to battle again, whether lawyers are moral, whether judges are moral, where is the line, how brave you have to be, right, to fight for the rightness and the proper sense of law in your court. I leave you with that. I know some of the details, but I'm too confused to speak in public about them. Thank you very much for your attention.